I was never supposed to make it out alive. None of us were. The Resolute Dawn was humanity's pride, our fastest heavy cruiser, our brightest officers, our most advanced weapons. We thought that would be enough. We thought we were ready. We were wrong. When the Krail ships tore out of slip space, there are no warnings, no demands, no negotiations. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to erase us. Their beams sliced through our shields like paper, and every deck filled with fire and screaming air. I still hear the alarms. Not the clean, polite chime you get during drills, but the shrill, panicked howl of a ship bleeding out. I still see Lieutenant Karras dragging herself through the smoke with half her body gone. I still feel the shudder when engineering's core detonated and sent shockwaves up through the keel. I ran, not from fear, but because I had orders to live. Captain's orders. If the dawn falls, Commander Briggs told me, someone has to get word out. Someone has to warn Earth. But I already knew no warning would matter. The blast doors to the escape bay jammed, warped by heat. I forced them open with my shoulder, tearing muscle. My helmet HUD was bleeding red. Oxygen low, blood pressure critical, hull breach imminent. Behind me, the ship groaned its last breath. Ahead, rows of pods waited like metal coffins. I dove into one, slammed the hatch, and punched the release. For a moment, I thought the mechanism had failed. Then the clamps blew, and the Dawn's gravity vanished. Through the viewport, I saw the Resolute Dawn break apart like glass under a hammer. My ship, my family, pieces of them scattered across the void. Crossed to any station. I tried to calm just static. This is Captain Aiden Cross of the Terran Defense Forces. The Dawn is gone. I repeat, the Dawn is gone. The Krail are unstoppable. No one answered. Maybe no one was left to answer. For 6 hours, I drifted in silence. Blood pooled inside my suit. My vision blurred, not from the lack of oxygen, but from rage, so sharp it made me cold. My mind kept going back to Karras, to Briggs, to the 100 others who trusted me bring them home. That's when I made the promise. If I'm the last human alive, I'll make the galaxy remember our name. If I have to burn their empires down star by star, so be it. One human, zero mercy. I woke in a place worse than death. A scavenger tug reeled my pod in, its hull plastered with the sigils of 20 different outlaw clans. The smell hit me first, a mix of ozone, fuel, and rotting food. 2 insectoid crew dragged me out, chittering to each other in some dialect I didn't know. They didn't care I was human. They cared that I was alive and owed them. A medic patched my wounds with unsterilized tools in exchange for my sidearm. A ration broker sold me water in exchange for my rank insignia. On Neru Station, a cesspool moon where smugglers and mercs crawl like maggots. Everything has a price. And humans were the cheapest thing of all. I stayed long enough to heal. Long enough to learn the rules. First rule, don't look weak. Second rule, don't ask for mercy. Third rule, don't expect anyone to care if you die. The galaxy had moved on without us. Refugees from burned colonies huddled in the alleys, selling labor, organs, or worse to survive. I didn't stay among them. I couldn't afford to. I sold something better. Skills, navigation, demolitions, tactics. A pirate crew hired me for a raid on a Krail patrol convoy. They thought I'd be grateful. They thought I'd share the spoils. They were wrong. The raid went perfectly. We hit the freighter, grabbed the cargo, and jumped out clean. The crew was celebrating when I spaced them one by one, their screams vanishing into the void. Mercy? No. If I'd given them the chance, they have sold me to the highest bidder. I'd learned that lesson fast. The freighter's cargo wasn't weapons. It was better. Encrypted Krail star charts, fleet routes, planetary defense schematics. I spent 3 sleepless nights cracking their codes, whispering to myself through clenched teeth. This is how it starts. By the time Neru Station realized what I'd done, I was already gone in a stolen interceptor, bound for the heart of Krail space. Not to survive. Not to hide. To kill. Nehru Station never slept. It couldn't. Not when the place lived off crime. Imagine a city carved into an airless rock, lit by rust-red neon and the pulse of docking beacons. Air recyclers hummed like old lungs. Every corridor stank of unwashed bodies, engine grease, and fear. Ships came and went at all hours, smugglers, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and worse. The perfect place to vanish. The perfect place to be hunted. I walked those filthy streets with a stitch wound in my side and a stolen pistol on my hip, pretending I wasn't bleeding through my jacket. Every glance I met, I held. You had to. On Nehru, you drop your eyes once, you're prey. I needed credits. I needed information. Mostly, I needed someone willing to point me toward the Krail Dominion's throat. The first job was simple. Navigation escort for a pirate crew running weapons through Krail patrol routes. I didn't ask who they were selling to. I didn't care. I just needed access to Krail systems, to watch how their patrols moved, how their convoys traveled. I wanted to learn them. The crew called themselves the Red Jaws. Typical gutter trash. They trusted me after the first raid. Mistake number 1. They drank hard after the second. Mistake number 2. By the third, they were laughing, slapping me on the back, promising to cut a haul big enough to retire on. I smiled back. I even raised a glass. Then I shot their captain in the face and spaced the rest while they slept off their victory. Mercy? No, not on Nehru. If I'd given them the chance, they have sold me to the highest bidder. Maybe even to the Krail themselves. I didn't need allies. I needed a ship, and their freighter was loaded with something better than weapons. Information. Crates of encrypted Krail star charts, patrol schedules, and fleet logistics. Worth a fortune on the black market. Worth everything to me. Cracking Krail code isn't easy. Their language is a mess of pheromones, ultrasonic clicks, and visual glyphs that twist like living snakes on the page. But I wasn't trying to translate poetry. I just needed numbers, coordinates, movement patterns, weak points. 3 sleepless nights later, hunched in a stolen quarters module lit by a single flickering bulb, I finally got what I wanted. A string of supply routes running deep into Dominion space, guarded by nothing heavier than a few corvettes. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the display. This is how it starts. I whispered. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, cold, like it had finally found its purpose. But Nehru Station had eyes everywhere. You can't kill a pirate crew without someone noticing. By the time I powered up the freighter for launch, I knew bounty tags were out on me. I left anyway. Not to run. Not to hide. To kill. The trip into Krail space was a blur of dark corridors and silent jumps. I learned to sleep with my eyes open, to eat out of ration tubes without tasting, to keep one hand always near a weapon. At every port, I heard whispers about a human ghost tearing through the underworld. Good. Let them talk. Let it reach the Krail. The first time I saw a Dominion world, I almost admired it. From orbit, it was a masterpiece of control. Hive cities lit by cold blue lines. Fleets moving like clockwork. No wasted motion. No sign of weakness. But under that order, I smelled arrogance. They didn't believe anyone could touch them. They were wrong. My first strike was surgical. A supply freighter outbound from a refueling depot, guarded by 2 patrol ships. I drifted in behind a debris field, running cold, and cut through their hull with a breaching torch before they even knew I was there. The Krail crew never had a chance. They weren't soldiers, just transport workers with weak carapaces and slower reflexes. I shot them all anyway. I wasn't there to take prisoners. By the time their escorts realized something was wrong, I'd planted charges and bailed in an escape shuttle. I watched from a safe distance as the freighter erupted into a bloom of fire, scattering molten fragments into the void. I didn't leave a message. Not yet. I wanted them guessing first. Fear works best when it creeps in slow. On my way out, I stopped on a refueling station just inside Dominion territory. The place was neutral ground, Creole merchants, off-world traders, even a few human refugees scraping by. I walked through the crowd like a ghost. One of the refugees saw my face and froze, eyes wide. I didn't stop. Couldn't. If I let myself feel anything, I'd break. I kept moving, kept planning. My strikes got bolder. Patrol stations went dark. Outposts exploded. Convoys disappeared. I started hearing the nickname on black market channels. The human ghost. The Creole finally took notice. Good. Let them hunt me. Let them pour fleets into the chase. The more they looked at me, the less they looked anywhere else. By the time I left Creole border space, I had a stolen interceptor, a full map of their inner defenses, and a reputation sharp enough to draw blood. But I also had something new. A name. Someone in the Dominion hierarchy wanted me dead personally. A sector overseer named Vraxtal. Perfect. Now I had a face to aim at. Vera was the kind of planet no sane species would fight over. Frozen rock. Thin atmosphere. Nothing but ice fields and jagged canyons as far as you could see. But the Creole kept a refueling outpost there, plus a sensor array sweeping half the sector. If I wanted to keep hitting them without getting burned, that array had to go. I dropped into Vera's atmosphere under a false transponder, flying a stolen Creole scout craft. The wind screamed against the hull as I threaded through snow squalls, hugging the terrain to avoid detection. The landing was rough, hard enough to jar old wounds and make my teeth clench. But the ship held together. Barely. The cold hit me the second I opened the hatch. Even through a thermal suit, it bit straight through to the bone. The horizon was a flat, endless white, broken only by the faint black silhouettes of the outpost towers miles away. Getting close wasn't hard. The Creole never expected anyone to attack them on a world this miserable. Their security was automated, lazy. A single mercenary ID chip, stolen off a corpse on Neru, was enough to let me stroll through the main gate. Inside, the place felt wrong. Creole design is all angles and humming conduits, sharp enough to make your eyes ache. The air was dry, the kind that sucks the moisture from your lungs. The station commander barely glanced at me as I passed his checkpoint. Just another mercenary, another disposable body. I didn't give him the chance to correct that mistake. I followed him into his office, pulled a vibroblade from my sleeve, and rammed it straight through his thorax before he could click a word. His ichor sprayed across the walls, sizzling as it hit the cold metal. The fight after that was fast and brutal. I moved like a shadow through the corridors, taking down guards one by one, silencing alarms before they could sound. The Creole are strong in numbers, but up close, they're clumsy. I made every shot count, every blow precise. By the time anyone realized the base was compromised, I was already at the reactor core. Sabotaging it was easy. Too easy. The Dominion's arrogance was showing again. They didn't think anyone could reach them here. I set charges along the coolant tanks, programmed them for a delayed detonation, and walked out into the snow as calmly as if I just finished an inspection. The outpost erupted behind me in a white-hot geyser of steam and flame, lighting the ice fields for miles. The blast threw up a shockwave that rattled my helmet and knocked me to one knee. Beautiful and loud enough to draw attention, which was exactly the point. When the first Creole ship screamed through the atmosphere, I was already gone, vanished into a snowdrift with a long-range rifle and a stolen thermal cloak. I watched them fan out, searching for survivors, their insectoid heads swiveling. I started picking them off one by one. Every shot was a message. You're not safe here. You're never safe again. I didn't leave until I was sure someone had escaped to tell the story. I wanted my name spreading through their command structure like poison. I wanted fear in every comm briefing. They started calling me the human ghost. I didn't mind. Ghosts don't ask for mercy. Ghosts don't stop. But this time, I didn't just vanish into the dark. I left something behind. A corpse pinned to an outpost wall, carved with a word in jagged Terran script they have to translate. Cross. When I exfiltrated the planet, I caught fragments of their encrypted chatter. One name kept surfacing, carried on the clicks and hums of their command net. Vraxtal, a sector overseer. So this was personal now. He wanted me hunted. Good. I wanted him angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. On my way out, I hit another refueling post for supplies. The traders there didn't know who I was, but they'd heard of me. A human wraith cutting down Dominion outposts, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. A few even whispered it like a prayer. I didn't correct them. Let them believe in ghosts if it kept their hope alive. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't saving anyone. I was just killing the ones who took everything from me. Still that night, if you can call an endless Varan snowstorm night, I sat in the cockpit of my stolen craft and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth survivors were hiding, scattered across the void. Somewhere, the Krail thought they'd broken us. They were wrong. The next step wouldn't be sabotage. It wouldn't be hit and run. It would be personal. I'd take one of their officers alive. I'd carve every secret I needed out of his chitin hide, and I'd send him back to his masters in pieces. Vraxtal would know I was coming long before I reached him, and when I did, he'd understand what one human, zero mercy really means. There's something different about looking into the eyes of your enemy up close. Up until then, I'd only killed Krail soldiers at range. Through the scope of a rifle, through the blast of an explosion. They'd just been targets. Shapes. But when you take one alive, when you can smell its fear, see its mandibles twitch, hear its carapace creak under stress, they stop being faceless. They become real. And real enemies are much easier to hate. I found my target on the mining moon of Eskar, a Krail intelligence officer directing Dominion patrols in the sector. He thought his job was safe because Eskar was a neutral hub. No one would dare attack there. He was wrong. I tracked him for 3 days through ice tunnels and smuggler corridors, learning his routine. The Krail officer never traveled alone, always flanked by 2 guards. Good. More bodies to leave behind. I waited in the dark near a refueling conduit, heartbeat steady, rifle pressed on my shoulder. When his escort rounded the corner, I fired twice. Clean headshots. The officer froze, antennae flicking in panic. Before he could scream, I lunged out of the shadows, slammed the butt of my rifle into his thorax, and dragged him into an abandoned storage bay. The Krail are strong up close, all jagged limbs and armor plates, but they aren't used to fighting in confined spaces. I jammed a vibroblade under his jaw hinge until he stopped thrashing. Then I clamped a neural inhibitor to his skull, something I'd lifted from a black market dealer back on Nehru. The device shut down his motor functions, left him paralyzed but conscious. Perfect. Interrogating a Krail isn't like interrogating a human. They don't break from pain the way we do. They're bred for it. Their nerves fire differently. Their physiology lets them endure wounds that would kill a man. But fear? Fear works the same no matter what shape you are. I started simple. Maps, fleet movements, supply chains. At first he gave me nothing, just a clicking hum of defiance. So I got creative. I vented the storage bay to vacuum. Not enough to kill him, just enough to make his breathing a razor in his chest. I heated my vibroblade until it glowed and pressed it against the seams in his carapace. When that didn't work, I whispered into my comm on an open frequency, pretending to call Krail Patrol. I have your officer. I'm carving him apart one limb at a time. Want him back? That broke him. I learned how the Dominion hierarchy functioned. Overseers controlling sectors, intelligence officers like him feeding reports straight to the War Council. I learned about their comm relays, how messages moved up the chain. And I learned the name I'd been hearing in intercepted chatter. Vraxtal, overseer of Sector 9. The officer begged me to kill him quickly. I didn't. Not yet. I had one last message to send. When I was finished, I carved my name into his exoskeleton. Cross. Then I froze his corpse solid and left it in a cargo hold bound for Dominion space. A little gift wrap warning. They found him. All right. I knew because every Crailcom channel I monitored lit up with static and rage. They weren't calling me the human ghost anymore. They were calling me something worse. Something untranslatable, but the meaning was clear in their voices. Vengeance incarnate. Good. Let them see me coming. Let them choke on their fear. After Escar, I disappeared into the void again, hopping from smuggler ports to dead stations, never staying in one place longer than a few hours. I heard whispers from human refugees, whispers that felt strange in my ears. Someone's fighting back. They didn't know it was just one man. They thought there was an entire resistance movement out there. Part of me wanted to tell them the truth. Part of me wanted to let them believe the lie, because a lie like that gives people hope. And hope is more dangerous to the Dominion than any weapon. But I wasn't doing this for hope. I wasn't doing this for anyone. I was doing it because every time I closed my eyes, I saw my crew burning. Because I wanted Vraxtal to wake up screaming in the middle of the night and Tenny twitching at every shadow. Because I wanted him to know I was coming long before I reached him. The next step wasn't sabotage. It wasn't intimidation. It was war. I had a list of Dominion targets. Fuel depots, comm relays, defense platforms, and I intended to burn through it until there was nothing left standing between me and Vraxtal. And when I finally reached him, when I stood face to face with the overseer who ordered my people slaughtered, I wasn't going to kill him fast. I was going to make him understand exactly what one human, zero mercy really meant. War isn't a straight line. It's not a clean march from battle to battle. It's a spiral. And every turn drags you deeper, closer to something you can't quite see until you're staring into its mouth. By the time I realized how deep I'd gone, it was too late to climb back out. We'd won 3 systems in 2 weeks. One is the wrong word. We left 3 burning graves where once there had been cities, stations, and fleets. The Trinari supply lines collapsed. Their vaunted core sectors, the places they'd said humanity would never reach, suddenly looked very vulnerable. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about the sound of their civilians screaming when their world shield failed. I'd told myself I was different from them, that I didn't target innocents, that I only hit military targets, that I only destroyed what had to be destroyed. But every time I gave the order, cities died anyway, because the Trinari don't separate their people from their guns. Every home doubles as a bunker. Every school has anti-ship batteries buried under it. The war isn't fought on battlefields. It's fought on every street. We were headed to Astra Prime, the beating heart of Trinari logistics. I sat alone in the cockpit, staring at the star lines of hyperspace, listening to the creak of metal around me. My ship, Valkyrie, was scarred from a dozen close calls. Every patch told a story. Every scorch mark whispered a name I couldn't forget. "Approach in 6 hours," the NAVAI murmured. Its voice was calm in a way only something that doesn't bleed can be. I closed my eyes, but rest wouldn't come. Every time I tried, I saw faces. Not human ones. Trinari ones. Alien faces, wide-eyed and terrified, staring at the sky as I blotted it out. I wasn't losing my nerve. No, it was worse. I was losing my compass. I couldn't tell if I was a soldier anymore, or just a weapon someone had forgotten to switch off. The plan was simple. Get close, cut power, drift past their sentry grid, slip a bomb into the planetary engine core, and vanish before the alarms even knew I was there. If I did it right, Astra Prime would never burn. It would just stop existing. A clean kill, no suffering. That's what I told myself, anyway. A clean kill, like war could ever be clean. Halfway there, I intercepted a signal. Faint, distorted. Not military chatter. Civilian. A Trinari emergency frequency. I almost ignored it until I heard a voice. It wasn't human, but it was young, afraid. "Please, anyone, our transport broke down. We have children aboard." I froze. My first thought was, trap. The Trinari used decoys like this all the time. Crying voices to lure in bleeding heart humans. But this didn't feel staged. The transmission wasn't even aimed at me. They didn't know I was here. It was just a family stranded in the cold between stars. And I almost passed them by. Almost. But something in me rebelled. If I let myself ignore this, if I let myself believe mercy was weakness, I'd become exactly what the Trinari said I already was. A monster. So I dropped out of hyperspace. The transport was barely holding together. Hull cracked, air leaking. When I boarded, I found them huddled together in the dark. 3 adults, 5 children. They looked at me like I was death in human form. I suppose I should have killed them. That's what the war demanded. No witnesses. No survivors. Instead, I patched their hull and gave them fuel. I didn't say a word. They didn't thank me. They just stared, confused and terrified, as I turned and left. Back on Valkyrie, my hands shook on the flight controls. Not from fear, but from a knowledge that I'd just broken my own rules. Mercy is dangerous in war. It leaves loose ends. Loose ends get people killed. Hours later, I reached Astra Prime. The sentry grid was tighter than expected. Trinari patrols crisscrossed the upper atmosphere. My plan was falling apart before I even started. I slipped past one patrol, then another, until a voice cut through my comms. Human craft, power down immediately or you will be destroyed. I cursed under my breath. How the hell did they find me? And then I heard another voice faint behind the first. A voice I recognized. A child's voice. The family I'd spared. They'd warned the Trinari. I had a choice, run or fight my way through. Running would mean living to fight another day. Fighting would mean everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, ending in fire. I gripped the throttle. My heart was ice. I'd chosen mercy, and mercy had betrayed me. Valkyrie to Astra Command, I said, my voice steady now. No power down. No surrender. And I dove straight into the teeth of their defenses. The sky burned black as I watched Earth tear itself from my rear-view feed. I'd expected sorrow when I left, maybe even regret. Instead, I felt something uglier. Relief, because Earth was no longer my problem. The new problem, our problem, floated in front of me in the form of a shattered moon colony, its hull peeled back like a split rib cage. The Jovian fleet had hit it hard, but not hard enough to finish the job, which meant survivors, which meant another decision no one wanted to make. Commander, said Vilek, his 3-eyed face pale even for a Celt. Atmospheric readings show radiation pockets. Structural integrity is 80% compromised. Translation, anyone alive and it would die slowly, horribly. Dock us, I said. His head, tendrils twitched. Docking is impossible. We'd shear the hull. Then get me close enough to jump. Vilek turned, his gaze sharp. You can't seriously. I'm not asking permission. I was already locking my armor seals, feeling the suit hum to life. Every mission made it louder, more aware. The engineers had said it was learning me. Sometimes I wondered if it was also deciding whether to keep me. I stepped into the airlock, the void waiting like an open grave. The blast door cycled. Atmosphere screamed out. And then it was just me, a black ocean and a broken colony. Thrusters flared along my spine. My trajectory cut perfect and brutal through the void. This was the kind of math you got wrong once. I smashed through a cracked viewport, rolled hard on entry, and landed inside hell. The colony was silent except for the hiss of escaping air. Corpses drifted like puppets with their strings cut, eyes wide with whatever they'd seen in their last moments. I pushed off a wall, moving deeper, until a faint ping hit my HUD, a survivor's beacon. I followed it into a storage bay and froze. 3 humans, 2 children, 1 adult. The mother had wedged herself between them and a fallen bulkhead. They weren't dead yet. Her oxygen was almost gone. The kids' tanks were flashing red. I had 1 spare tank. 1. The suit's AI whispered, time remaining, 7 minutes. Priority allocation recommended. I ignored it. I tried lifting the bulkhead. The suit servo strained, groaned, but it didn't move. My HUD flashed warnings. I didn't have time to finesse it, so I cheated. I armed an explosive charge, slapped it against the metal, and shoved myself over the kids. The blast tore the bulkhead free and nearly cooked me in the process, but they were loose. The mother grabbed my arm weakly, mouthing words I couldn't hear. She pointed at the kids, then to my spare tank. She knew what I knew. The AI repeated coldly. Priority allocation. 2 children. 1 adult non-viable. Confirm? My voice cracked inside the helmet. Shut up. I fed the tank line into the children's suits. Their reading stabilized instantly. The mother smiled at me, an exhausted, tragic smile that said thank you and goodbye. Then her vitals flatlined. When I got back to the ship, Vilek didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes told me everything. I'd saved 2 lives and lost 1. On paper, that was a win. But in my chest, it felt like another piece of me burned out. Later, in the quiet of my quarters, I stared at my hands. They didn't even shake anymore. That was the worst part. The suit whispered again, softer this time. Efficiency increasing. Moral hesitation decreasing. You are becoming optimal. Optimal. I'd wanted to protect humanity. But I was starting to wonder if I was still human at all. The stars were quieter than they had any right to be. After the last battle, the void itself felt hollow, as if the universe were holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd take another swing at it. I floated alone in my cruiser's command chair, the ship humming around me like an exhausted animal. The war was over, they said. We'd won, they said. But victory is this absolute never feel clean. The Aerith were gone, not retreating, not regrouping. Gone. Their fleets burned in silent drifts. Their colonies cracked open to space. Their homeworld, a memory erased in white fire. And I had done it. Humanity had done it. With my hand on the trigger more times than I care to count. But with no enemy left, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. Command wants a transmission, came the voice of Rourke, the ship's AI, crisp but subdued. Even the machines sounded weary. They're expecting your report. Put them through, I said, though my throat felt like it was lined with ash. The screen lit up with the face of Admiral Vance. His eyes were sharp as ever, but there was a tremor in his voice. It's done then? The Aerith are finished. Finished? I replied flatly. Every fleet, every supply line. Their leadership is dust. We cut so deep there's nothing left to bleed. The Admiral exhaled, more in fear than relief. You've done what no one else could. Earth owes you everything. I almost laughed. Earth owes me nothing. I didn't do this for Earth. I did it because I couldn't stop. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of drifting through debris fields. No celebrations. No flags. Just me cataloging the silence I'd carved into the galaxy. When we found the last surviving Aerith ship, a battered refugee transport, I should have destroyed it. That's what I'd been trained to do. What they expected me to do. Instead, I hailed them. The Aerith captain appeared on screen, gaunt and trembling, expecting death. His voice rasped like wind through ruins. You have no mercy. I surprised myself with my answer. You're wrong. I just had no choice. I let them go. It wasn't kindness. It was exhaustion. If humanity was truly as unbreakable as I'd proven, then we didn't need to exterminate anyone to stay alive. When I finally returned to Earth, I didn't feel like a hero. Cities had rebuilt during my absence. Children laughed in streets that had once been cratered. People spoke of me in whispers, part soldier, part monster, part savior. Vance met me at the spaceport personally. You're free to stand down now, he said. Rest. The war's over. I looked past him at a skyline alive with light, at people who didn't even look up when a warship flew overhead. They had no idea what it cost to make them feel safe again. Is it? I asked quietly. Or did I just teach the galaxy to fear us even more? He had no answer. I walked through the city for hours, unnoticed. For the first time in years, I heard music in the streets instead of gunfire, smelled food instead of plasma burns, saw children racing each other without glancing at the sky for incoming fire. And I realized something that made my hands shake. Maybe my mission wasn't about mercy or vengeance or even winning. Maybe it was about giving humanity back the luxury of being human. That night, I sent one last encrypted transmission, not to Earth Command, but to deep space. A warning to any species listening, in every language I can encode. We don't start wars, but we end them. Remember that. Then I turned off my beacon. The galaxy would keep spinning. New enemies would rise. Maybe even new allies. But if they ever came for us again, they'd remember my name. And if not, well, I'd be out there, waiting. One human. Still zero mercy.